Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. Let's go! Well guys, it's been a while since we checked out the frontline updates, but for the last 3 days Russian army advances, not the Ukrainian one. Well, first of all, Russian army is quite active in Torets direction and also in Tarasovka. They really cut the road, the main highway, which was used by Ukraine before to connect Pokrovsk and, let's say, Konstantinovka and Chasiv Yar. Well, this road is not serviceable any longer for supply delivery. Why? Well, let's go to this area and let's check out today's update. You may see that Russia has crossed it in at least 2 of the regions, over here and over here near Nova Poltavka. And Russia creates those kind of the small pockets for Ukrainian army, forcing out troops to leave positions. Ukrainian army cannot afford heavy losses. The Ukrainian tactics is now to withdraw to the previously prepared positions and launch some of the FPV drones and other stuff on heads of the Russian soldiers. That is how Ukraine only may cause losses for the Russian army, way more losses compared to its own. So you see, one of the reasons why the ceasefire was kind of profitable for Putin, Putin's fake ceasefire announced from 7th till 10th of May. Russia definitely was able to regroup its forces using low-intensity fights during that period. And also there are a couple of the attack vectors from the Russian side in Ketlarivka direction and over here as well. So it was yesterday, it is today. The attack where Ukrainian defense is the weakest. They're searching for the place where they can send more reinforcements, more midwaves. But you know, those Russian army attacks, they do not look great for the Russian army after all, again if you speak about losses. Well, today I filmed some of the video on my Rumble channel. Here are the screenshots from it. There I published the stuff which is directly filmed from the front lines, and yeah, you may check it out yourself. Just to understand that the life for the Russian army is not that bright as Russian propaganda and some of the pro-Russian media influencers say. But I would agree that judging on the military map update, Russia definitely takes the ground. So here where Russia actually crossed this road, which I showed you before, they went to Malinivka and already installed their flag. Meanwhile, Ukraine uses tons of the FPV drones to hit Russia really hard. So Russians gain the ground, but at the same time they lose everything. Meanwhile, some of the Russian propagandists and military influencers like Gubarev are not satisfied with the Russian command and the actions of the Russian army. Pavel Gubarev was actually one of those who organized the self-proclaimed Republic of Donetsk, DPR. He now says that ideas of the Russian world or Russian peace have been betrayed by the Russian military command and by the Russian leadership, because none of goals of the special military operations have been reached by the Russian army. Moreover, he proclaims that Russia lost 1 million of the soldiers, including KA and wounded personnel. Yeah, he says that Russia was successful in Kursk and Russia took some of the territories for the last couple of years, but it's not significant achievement, judging on the army resources which were just wasted for those minor territorial gains. And we heard the complaints not just from Gubarev and some of the Russian military bloggers. No, the problem is pretty much severe in the Russian society already. I muted the sound, but lady who comments this video says that it's the valley of millionaires, ruble millionaires. Well, that's the very detailed description of what is happening out there in Russia. Because with the losses they have, almost everyone in Russia felt the war. Yeah, not economically, but people are gone. Relatives, friends, they're just buried in Russia or in Ukraine. And definitely the number is close to 1 million already for Russia alone. However, the sad thing that Russian society is still sleeping. They analyze what is happening and they see that something is going to the wrong direction, but still they're afraid to raise their voice. You know, still volatile society, and it might take years and years for some of the revolution to spark out there in Russia. But the more of those pictures are out there in Russia, the faster the Russian society or Russian elite maybe would wake up. They'll understand that it's not possible to continue this madness. Unfortunately, with Putin, Well, at least I predict that the war will continue. By the way, my friends, here I want to ask you to support the channel using your huge like. Yeah, just now press your huge like to this video because it helps me a lot. Also, subscribe for the channel. And I want to thank separately my sponsors on membership and on Patreon, obviously. Guys, you keep me running, and if you want to join me on Patreon to support the job that I do here almost daily, you're very welcome to the link I put in the video description just below. Click on it and you'll see my Patreon page. Thank you so much, guys, for your awesome support of the channel in one or other way, but you're just awesome. Yeah, a fresh video published today. That is what should be presented in a Russian parade in Moscow, but they shown lots of the vehicles, tanks. Instead of sending those to the front lines, they used donkeys. Well done, Russia, well done. Instead of heavy armored vehicles, Russians continue to use simple transport like Bukhanka vans, but Ukraine turns all of that stuff into the cabrio, as you can see. And this is the classical Russian MRAP was, which is also an armored vehicle, which was kaboomed by FPV drone strike. So yeah, Russia has massive military protection, but they also have massive corruption schemes in Russian military. So far, Putin is unable to change it because the system itself is like that. It is damn corrupt. And for this reason, Russia attacks using simple transport. And the Russian military corruption, it definitely helps Ukraine a lot. Bukhanka van, the main thing is to put the Russian symbol, the huge one, on the door. Well, you may say, Dennis, you show us how incapable the Russian army is, so why Ukraine retreats from positions? Well, first of all, Russia uses lots of the infantry forces to attack. They think that they don't care about the lives of their soldiers, and our guys just see at those zombie attacks and they cannot stand the ground because Russians are going wave by wave. So actually the only option for Ukrainian soldiers is to leave positions, as I've told you, to secure their lives and to cause more losses for Russia with FPV drones, artillery and so on. So if we speak about the present moment, yes, Russia gains the ground, but if we speak about the long-term scenario, strategy, it is no-go scenario for Russia because to conquer Ukraine, Russia would need millions, tens of millions of people. So what is happening with those Russian mid-waves attacks has no perspective, has no logic. In general, it is a useless war without real success for Russia. It is impossible to achieve it. But you know, Putin is just determined to attack. That's the reality, my friends, and our guys, they handle the situation quite well with the Ukrainian military command. Right, about the Russian command center in Norilsk, Kursk Oblast, which was kaboomed by HIMARS, we have some of the details of this attack and about the Russian losses. Well, it was the headquarters of the 4th Separate Marine Brigade of the Russian army. And by the time of the strike, according to initial information, Danilov Alexander Olegovich was at that particular spot. He is the commander of that brigade. Kind of the honorable person in the Russian army. He even had the Medal of Hero of Russia, the highest possible rank medal. Well, it looks like he was kaputted, but still I am waiting for the final confirmation of this information. We have just the initial one published. I hope it is correct. And according to the information coming from one of the Ukrainian commanders, Russia tried to attack Malashevkivka. It is the Kupiansk direction, so the Kupiansk city is over here, but this attack just totally failed for the Russian army. The video evidence they say they will publish tomorrow, but I trust this Ukrainian commander because usually he publishes correct information. And this is probably the Russian parade which is happening not far away from the front lines. Here you can see a wonderful car and nano industry of the Russian military. Lada is on a way to dominate the front lines, and here you can see the China-made motorcycle which wasn't even painted into green or at least gray color. Yeah, the second army in the world really doing it full forward. And what we have here, again, water from the pits. Awesome, awesome logistics for the Russian army. Again, you can see it. Multiple of those videos were published, so Russians are probably complaining about it or enjoying it. Life in nature, Bear Grylls style. I don't know, you make the headline in the comment section just below. That's the reality of the Russian army. I just don't understand why he put his feet over there. Maybe it's the Russian-style spa or something. Guess this tent was created in one of the Russian schools in a village of Barguzin, Buryatia, Republic of Russia. You may see many of the faces there. I will put myself towards up, towards bottom, just for you to see everything. Well, the thing that the population of this particular settlement is not more than 4,000 people. And here they created kind of the big wallpaper with those Russians who confirmed to be KA. But how many lost in Ukraine? How many were wounded? For sure, this war touches almost everyone in Russia, especially if we speak about those kind of the close, small communities. Outside Moscow, obviously. Oh, what's the tuning they have? Wow, SSSR, the symbols of the Soviet Empire, right on this Lada, again, vehicle. Fantastic. This, I think, is better than Bradley in many of the aspects. First of all, it's much lighter. It's kind of maneuverable as well. The fuel consumption is low. It might take many of the soldiers, maybe the same as Bradley, even more. Just put them all together on top in a trunk. And what else? Well, fresh air, you don't need air condition. Very nice vehicle. Much better than Bradley. 100%. Should I comment that? Just the usual stuff in Russian military hospital. Guys, around half a month ago I reported about the ground storage of the ammunition of the Russian army, which was kaboomed with the help of the Ukrainian drones. Well, according to the United Kingdom government research, it was the biggest single munition loss in this war. Not just for Russia, but in this war. And that tells a lot about the success of the Ukrainian drone operations. Yeah, definitely it was big. Russia lost lots of the ammunition out there, and definitely it also helps to stop or slow down Russians in Ukrainian front lines. But you know, guys, political news after all dominates the informational field around Ukraine. For example, President Zelensky, I guess, already changed his opinion, and he says that Ukraine is ready for any kind of the talks with Russia on any kind of the level in Istanbul. So before he said that I'm gonna be there, I'm gonna wait for Putin, but now there could be the meeting between delegations of Russia and Ukraine, which is completely different story. And I personally think that negotiations in Istanbul would not change a thing. Putin wants those negotiations in parallel continuing the war, and if Trump says to Russia, why you continue this war, well, Putin will say, come on, we're negotiating already 2 years, 3 years, we're negotiating with Ukraine, but Ukraine is to blame because they don't want to capitulate and give us territories of Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk and Luhansk. So I still consider it as the diplomatic trap for Ukraine, nothing more, nothing less, and probably it was coordinated even with Donald Trump, but I'm not sure about it. Yeah, there's just some of the conspiracy theory again. And in general about those negotiations in Turkey, some mess is happening out there already. Trump says that he is willing to go there, and now he says that the trip to Turkey would be a logistical nightmare, but he says that still it's a possibility, only if Putin is going to go to Istanbul, I guess. So some officials say that they're coming. Brazilian president asks Putin to meet with Zelensky directly. The European politicians, everyone has his or her opinion. It's the total discoordination and no one knows what might happen in a couple of days. Probably nothing might happen, or probably Putin will meet with Zelensky. No one knows really, but I put very small percentage for them to meet, less than 1, I would say. And that's why I guess I'm gonna wait a little for the confirmed and robust information to arrive, because now we're overwhelmed with rumors, statements, and it is craziness. About Donald Trump, well, he's doing quite well in Saudi Arabia and also in Qatar. And now he's probably in Qatar by the time I'm recording this video. And he also met with Syrian leader, who previously was in the most wanted list by United States of America. You see how the situation actually might change. Today you are in a wanted list, and tomorrow you are meeting with the USA president. High politics, you know? It all depends on interest. interests of those personalities, politicians. And yeah, European leaders also met with the guy. And yeah, here they're probably cosplaying Russian soldiers. Well, still I think it is better than Assad's regime in Syria, but it's not ideal regime now established out there. A crazy thrilling drama is now ongoing with the Russian shadow oil fleet tanker in the Baltic Sea. Estonia tries to intercept this ship, this vessel, but the crew of the ship doesn't obey the orders. They don't want to go to the Estonian port and being detained, and Estonia tries to board the ship using the Coast Guard, helicopters and boats, but crew, I guess, called for reinforcements and Russia sent their fighter jet. It was spotted over the Baltic Sea, and actually it violated the airspace of Estonia. Is it the escalation? Well, I guess it is. According to the recent info, there is some sort of the diplomatic scandal now ongoing between Estonia and Russia. Estonia calls the Russian ambassador for explanations why their jet was in Estonian airspace. Well, Estonia, come on! Russian fighter jet went into your airspace. Do you have the air defense? Just shut down this airplane and then call the Russian ambassador. You know what Turkey did to the Russian jet back in 2017? And Putin is still okay with Erdogan, but here Estonia doesn't want to escalate, and ship actually passed by, it wasn't detained. Well, in this case, Estonia, you may expect more of those airspace violations of yours. Chancellor Merz urges Western unity on Ukraine on eve of peace talks. Yeah, what can I say? Russia is still not under the new sanctions, even though they promised to apply those after 12th of May. If Russia wouldn't agree on any sort of the ceasefire, Russia didn't agree and there are no sanctions. They say that they will wait. So what's the reason? What was the reason to say about it loudly? That the sanctions are being coordinated even with the United States of America. And Putin actually with his decision postponed the implementation of those sanctions, and maybe they'll even forget about those. And yeah, there is the information that ambassadors of the European Union countries have already agreed the 17th package of the sanctions applied on Russia, but it is not the final decision. And as I have the information coming from the different sources, those sanctions are kind of light, much lighter than expected by many of the experts. Sanctions will not change the behavior of the Russian Federation, simply just support Ukrainian military more, that's it. But what European Union is doing now, it applies or imposes much higher tariffs on Ukrainian imports, including Ukrainian agricultural products. So Europe, are you helping Ukraine or not? Europe is the force which keeps the Russian army away from your territory, from the NATO territory and from European Union itself. Russia could attack Baltic countries if they were not busy in Ukraine. I don't understand that, guys. Imposing tariffs, extra tariffs on Ukraine, much higher tariffs. Well, you may say that it was done to support local farmers of Poland, for example. But after all, the same Europe would have to give money to Ukraine directly or by loans. But after all, Ukraine will get money from the same countries just a little later in different way to support Ukrainian economy, because Europe needs Ukraine, which is floating above bankruptcy. And why not to let Ukraine just to sell the products elsewhere? Yeah, with some of the tariffs, obviously, but not crazy high tariffs. Even Donald Trump understood his mistake. Yeah, he wouldn't say that it was his mistake, but he understood that applying crazy tariffs on China is a wrong move. So they negotiated lowering the tariffs down to 10 or 30% between the countries for the next 90 days. They did it behind the curtains, but we have this information. But now Europe wants to push Ukrainian economy. Thank you, allies. And guys, you know, sometimes you do not agree with my opinion on many of the things, and it is normal. After all, I just share my own view on things. I'm not saying that I'm always right. After all, this channel's name is Davydov. And here you watch just my analysis based on my personal logic and information coming from different sources. Well, guys, anyways, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.